Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the 9-time GSL champion, the Terran in red, the man, the myth, the Maru. Facing off against his favorite punching bag, the Zerg in the blue, we have SHIN. In a best-of-5 Terran versus Zerg playoff showdown to Pig's $10,000 Pigsty Festival number 7 tournament. And before we get started, be incredible if you could smash that like button, maybe even subscribe. And we got the algorithm, and Jimmy, what do we 1,829 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As a quick history lesson before we get started. 32 times, Maru and Ragnarok and SHIN, the artist formerly known as Ragnarok, have faced off throughout nearly 15 years of StarCraft 2. And 32 times, 31 is Terran and 1 is Protoss, Maru has prevailed in what is possibly the most lopsided matchup, especially in terms of their skill level, in StarCraft 2 history. SHIN has beaten Serral, Hero, Clem multiple times, but Maru is the mountain that he seems completely and utterly unable to climb. Yes, Maru is arguably the best or second best Terran in the world. But SHIN is not too far down the list on Zerg. Third, maybe fourth on a particularly bad day. But it seems like just being in a game against Maru is a bit of a spoiler. He cannot seem to get over the titanic mental block, and somewhat puns intended. No matter how good the game is going, he might even win. But not a single series in his entire career. So with that all said, Game 1 is on Celestial Enclave, already a map that is well known for creative strategies, and both these players more than happy to try new things. But, as I already mentioned, the outcome, well, we don't bet on these things. But if we did, Reaper, Queens will push him away. The Overlord, we'll see everything there is to see, pretty much. As we all know, there's only a few things that are guaranteed in life: death, taxes, begging for likes and subscribes, and third command center. Maru already mining from 3 bases, though one of them in the back pocket, the budget base, as it only has 5 mineral patches instead of 8 and a single gas geyser. But the only way in is either flying, walking through the front door, or technically you could send, like, workers through the mineral-only path here. But I don't think a drone rush is in the cards here, as 5 minutes into the match, it seems less than effective. So the Banshee soon to have Cloak, and SHIN soon to have his lair, and Maru is taking us to McDonald's in game number 1. 2 more factories on the way. And not too surprising considering the ease of defending your early bases. But Maru has certainly been on the forefront of using Mech against Zerg to great success. But significantly less probably when the Zerglings get in and kill a bunch of SCVs. Maru shuts the door in the face of some of the Lings. 1 Hellion is taken out. And so far the Zerglings will get a grand total 2 SCVs? No, one of them was the scouting SCV, which actually happened to die. So, did he see the factories? He saw the second factory. And he knows there are Banshees. He knows this is Mech. But he's going for Mutas. That is, well, it might not even... Maru has no shame whatsoever, though. He slaps down not 1 but 2 scans. The lair's done. He spots the Spire. No one can hide from the orbital commands. Spire's halfway done, creating kind of an awkward scenario because you don't have to commit to it. It's not a huge expense. And Maru, now that SHIN knows Maru is going Mech, he has a lot of time to prepare a response. Now, if history is any guide, he has a lot of time to figure out exactly what not to do. Okay, all right, you know, no one beat SHIN 33 times in a row. Is what we're really hoping here, to have a match that is less one-sided than a Mobius Strip. But 8 Mutalisks in production. So, Mutas are one of the only units that could actually catch up with Hypershis He canceled Banshee speed? How disappointing. Though not too surprising, as the Spire nearing completion certainly would cut down on the life expectancy of those Banshees. Instead, brings them back home. Gonna help out with the defense. He's going for the Hell Clones, the Battle Mech style. The much more mobile composition, even without those speed Banshees, that can contest the Zerg on the field instead of just turtle up and put down a bunch of turrets and siege tanks. Not that he's not going to build turrets and siege tanks, but, you know, it's the second course here. A few mutas flapping by. The Hellions finding an angle, but SHIN on the creep is going to be able to surround and eventually kill them. The Reaper probably going to look for any indications of a hive. He's going to try to kill a muta flapping its way. There's no hive. I can't believe the Reaper 7.5 minutes into the match. He actually starts an infestation pit a little bit off the screen, maybe reminded by the fact that Reaper was scouting at that moment. But Maru is somewhat retreating into his shell. He's got Mag Field Accelerator, which is 50% more DPS on the lock-ons from those Cyclones, which already do terrible damage. Just makes them do terrible damage. Technical term. The muta count, 16, 15. And the Cyclones? Well, so the Cyclones, for better or worse, and it could be both, usually better, but the Cyclones will prioritize air threats. They will automatically lock on to mutas instead of Zerglings if they're at the same distance. So sometimes that's good because it makes it harder for them to deal with ground units. But most of the time, that does help deal with it. Thors also share that same sort of priority where their focus is as an anti-air platform. Because we've spent the entirety of StarCraft 2 trying to give Terrans Goliaths and just not directly doing so. Ready, TACCOM? But I digress. The Hell Clone's on the way, quite literally. He's just building Hellbats out of his factories, which is a thing you can do. Most people prefer to use Hellions and then transform them on the field, but Maru is keeping them in the Hellbat mode from the very start, clearly indicating what he's going to prioritize. There's no restrictions. As long as you have an armory, you can go back and forth as much as you like, but usually you don't change it too often because, of course, you can be caught in the process. 3 missile turrets, but there's 22 mutas. The missile turrets barely surviving a single volley. The mutas easily ripping through them, and Maru vulnerable at the back, but the Cyclones will lock on, and a few of the mutas will be knocked down. Scans in order to maintain the lock. The blood drips into the beautiful water. Well, actually, no, it's kind of gross, but the water features on the edge. Brenda! No, just don't say anything. Do you want to explain it? No! I don't remember anything last night. I don't... Sorry. Everyone blacked out. Meanwhile, everything else in production. Ultralisk Cavern. Adrenal Glands, which is a big achievement for SHIN, who forgets it on not infrequent occasion. He's got +2 melee, +1 carapace. He has 94 drones. He has 6-7 bases. He has an obscene amount of income. And apparently anything over about 3,500 is obscene. And 1,600 gas per minute. If SHIN could develop the technology to create a significant amount of kitchen sinks, I think he would throw them at Maru as well. Maru, on the other hand, well, he has retreated within his shell entirely. In fact, he was locking on by right-clicking the changelings. And Thor is in production, 2 of them. He's got 2/2 mech weapons and armor. Now, what is the answer to the question Maru's asking? How do you break this army? And is it worth it to even attempt to do so? So, Maru clearly will have less income. He will have access to less of the map. But in just 11 minutes, the map is already kind of crystallized in what we are likely to see for the near future, which is Maru tucked into his corner with a obscenely... There's that word again. It's a dirty, dirty game. Some real SHIN right here. I digress. Banshee's knocked out of the sky, but the Cyclones lock on, and he's straying a lot into the Cyclone fire, though I think SHIN is trying to trade out the Mutas for something a bit more capable of a direct fight. But here comes SHIN. Dozens upon dozens of Banelings. Zerglings leading the charge. The Hellbats aren't enough. The Siege Tanks don't nearly do enough to cut down on the Baneling count, and the Planetary Fortress is simply obliterated. The Mutas mostly survive. SHIN lost 60 supply in that fight. He wiped out kind of a similar amount of Marus. It was a costlier one for SHIN overall, of course, whenever you use Banelings in such magnitude, but if he can continually hammer this base, if this is the anvil, and SHIN is able to bring down the Baneling hammer and catch Maru in between, well, that seems to be the objective. He's going for the Lisks and the Lings. We've got Ultras. We've got Vipers. We have more Mutas in production, as well as Ultra Speed Microbial Shroud, of all things. He already got Neural Parasite, but he did not get Burrow, which I feel like the moment he builds Infestors, he may remember. But the map is full of creep, and at wherever Maru goes, he will be spotted. But another important point, will he care? Maru's army he has 4 Thors, and however many years ago he decided that this is how we're gonna play Mech. No ghosts, no silly bio units, because flesh is weak and malleable. And as they say, Mech, Terran, great grandpa. The Ultras come in for another pass. Blinding Cloud on the Siege Tanks. The Thors are forced into the jaws of the Ultralists. And now hitting the Vipers instead of the Ultras themselves because of that anti-air priority. The Mutas are swinging in. But the Ultras, challenged in tight spaces, will back off for now. Another wave will be queued up. The Cyclones lock on. The Thors chunk through. And so far, SHIN has been about as cost-effective as you could expect to be. He's mined 6,000 more minerals, 4,000 more gas, and lost barely a fraction of those resources. 5 Infestors and Burrow on the way. Maru's working on 3/3 mech weapons and armor. The armor upgrades carry over to all mech units, starport or ground units. But the ship weapons and mech weapons are split. So that means any Liberators, like the ones Maru's building right now, Banshees, Vikings, will all need their own special upgrades. But SHIN, he has 9 hatcheries to 5 bases of Maru, and one of those is the budget base, so more like 4.5. And Maru is continually maxed out. He has the army. It is, without ghosts, it isn't the toughest army to beat. But it is, there's a lot of parts that need to be dealt with in a very particular fashion. You cannot simply throw yourself into it headlong and expect to find success. And SHIN has not been doing that. He's found new creative ways to throw himself into it. And it's been good enough so far. But if Maru is allowed to mine from even one more base, I fear that the efficiency is going to take quite a downturn. Here comes SHIN, another wave. The command center choking things off. And now the Liberators with a Venn diagram of freedom overhead. There are 2 more. There's a Greater Spire and a Spire halfway done. So double upgrades as maybe a switch to Mass Broodlord. He got his hatchery taken out down the center. The Cyclones just sharking around. It's just Maru is stretched out throughout the entire map. The Widow Mines hitting the Ultras. A lot of damage being dealt by the Liberators just kind of incidentally as they're set up in the center. And the Cyclones are knocking down whatever they can. A few Overseers. He's chasing him all the way back to the ramp. But the Widow Mines have thinned out a lot of the army. And Ultra gets drawn into the Planetary Fortress. And, well, the Cyclones continue to find more and more efficiency. The Infestors are behind this. Throws out a Fungal. Emotional support Fungal there is... He hit a single Cyclone and now is forced to turn around. 5 more Ultras in production. And I can't help but think... Dangerous thing. Maybe we are straying a little bit too far into the... attrition-based warfare as opposed to a more late-game option. And now Maru's adding Ghosts to the composition as SHIN seems intent on using both Infestors and Vipers, and so far finding a lot of success. Microbial Shroud in order to reduce the ranged attack damage, but it does nothing against the Cyclone lock-ons. So Well, SHIN is kind of chewing his way through. He grabs some Cyclones, which are really good against Cyclones. Fun fact. But Maru, siege tanks on the high ground. A ghost pops out of the barracks, immediately EMPs. And SHIN, a brutal fight. But actually not a terrible trade. The Ultra's gonna start chewing on the planetary fortress. Building armor is not done, but they're not killing it very fast. He locks on. One Ultra's taken down. Another one badly bruised. The Infestors unburrow. They can't do anything because they don't have energy. 2 Vipers knocked out of the sky by Cyclones. And SHIN, he broke the base. The Widowmines have continued racking up kills, as have the Liberators, who've just kind of been in the choke point of all this. Not a single Corruptor. Brenda! Shut up already. I don't... A few transfuses. Only 5 Queens. Tasked with injecting and everything else. Oh, man, only 4... The drone transfer through the liberation circles almost gives away the base. Well, it was kind of implied that SHIN has most of the other bases. But again, here come the SCVs at a tumultuous time. The Ultras chewing up a siege tank, but the Widowmines are going to force him back. A hatchery's taken out, 11 drones with it, and SHIN only has 200 minerals in the bank, which is not enough for much of anything. He sieges up he takes one of Maru's Liberators, and, well, kills the Infestors. The Ultras are caught in the midst of the mineral line here. He will take out this planetary. Ultras getting obliterated by Widowmines, but... And some Hellbats sauntering by. But so far, SHIN, he's knocked Maru down to 1... Oh, the Ultras came back the wrong way. And the map working against SHIN. Despite having so much of it, Maru has jammed key units into important choke points. And that's allowed him to at least stay kind of close. SHIN has lost 12,000 more resources, including 5,000 more gas. And here come the ghosts. He lines up the shots, the Liberator's behind. And Maru is marching forward. This is starting to get a little dicey for SHIN, as he's played this war of attrition. The 300 supply Zerg, where you build 100 army supply, you throw it into the meat grinder, hopefully trade well enough, and you build another 100 before they can put even a quarter of that on the table. But here comes Maru. He's going forward. He's taken out most of the creep, and there's barely any queens to replace it. He's closing in on the base, and more Liberators are coming out. The siege tank's moving up. And SHIN, it's do or die. He needs to break this. The Liberators are going to continue forward. Here comes SHIN. Trundling down the ramp will just collapse on the Cyclones. There's really not that many units here on the ground for Maru. And the Liberators still in the sky. More Cyclones on the way. And Maru, not the climactic fight I was maybe expecting, is... There were 8 Cyclones. Honestly, a great trade for SHIN. He lost 2 Infestors and 97 Zerglings. Oh, the Widowmines are still going. But he killed 8 clones, 8 Hellbats, and 3 ghosts, which... Well, if he can continue doing that... As Maru does not have that iron bank of command centers. He has 5 orbital commands, which is a lot, but it's not map hacks with extra APM level. He still wants mules. He needs scans for Infestors, so he can't just keep track of the army at all times. SHIN, with a precarious timing for a switch into Broodlords. Maru scanning forward, but again, he doesn't have that sort of energy. But he has enough. He scans the Broods, and more Thors in production. He has +1 infantry armor for the Ghosts, as they don't really care about their actual weapon upgrades. It's all about keeping him alive a little bit longer. The Cyclone Hellbat Widowmine composition. This is like the alternate universe Mega Blocks Terran here. But the Broodlords are in position to help deal with it. Broodlords incredibly good against Widowmines, as long as the Widowmines can't actually hit the Broods themselves. Because they force those Widowmine shots to be drawn out. They turn the siege tanks against sometimes other siege tanks themselves. As Terran units don't always discriminate on who's nearby. They see a Broodling and they will fire at it with everything they have. So the Broodlords can be an important tool for kind of prying apart this sort of entrenched Terran composition. But it feels like a bit of a Matryoshka doll situation. a Maru Troishka where you pry it apart and oh no, it's Thors and Liberators. He is forcing Maru into a less mobile but more powerful composition, which could be good, but it also could be disastrous, as Maru is going to have to rely on Thors and Liberators and Ghosts instead of the more annoying but significantly more fragile Cyclones, Widowmons, and to an extent Siege Tanks. But Maru is now taking the center base. SHIN has mined 12,000 more minerals. He's mined 4,000 more gas, but he's lost about that many more as well. Thus, the bank's nearly dead even. The army value, very similar. 6.5 something and 5,000 gas apiece. The Cyclones found that bottom right base. Maru, technically, if you mine out the whole map, and we eventually get to that point, the bean counter phase, it doesn't matter how fast you do so. It just matters how much you have at the end. As he starts a fusion core. And honestly, while advanced ballistics would be massive for helping deal with the infestors. But also, this is a scenario where battle cruisers are not off the table. Well, SHIN does have +3 going on 3/3 flyer attacking carapace. I was working my way there. So, direct fighting units in the sky, but this, for advanced ballistics, in order to keep the Liberators at ridiculous range, he's got a nuclear missile in production. He locks onto some Cyclones, will chase them down and punch right through the armor. As, technically it's spell damage, or ability damage, but what are they, ability users? Technically, yes. Poetically, that's horrible. The Widowmons, that is, oh my. That is the platonic ideal of Terran right there. Big, huge robots, super cool sniper dudes, and a unit that literally says "God Freedom" is one of its lines. Liberation is at hand in Maru. 4 Thors at a time. SHIN has the age-old composition. The only real way to compete in the late game. The extreme late game. Infestors and Broodlords. The only units that can compete both in range and power. Now, incredibly expensive and remarkably fragile, they still have plenty of potential to take on this army composition. But SHIN, he's lost so much, and he can't afford to lose much more. Meanwhile, Maru is actually kind of freshly mining from a couple bases, so really it's more on SHIN here to get something done, as Maru is about to take out several hatcheries, most of which are mined out, but he can cut off potentially the tech tree itself, which obviously is not helpful for long-term prospects. Clearly, SHIN is trying to keep the map cut in half, holding onto the east side while Maru claims the west. The gases have been mined out. The minerals have been mostly extracted. The Liberators, though, are in position, but are they? Oh, it was a bait. The Ghosts light up their shots and knock out the Corruptors before the Broodlords can even get within spitting distance. And Maru is just cleaning up the patience. Disgusting, inspiring, and effective. Maru is slowly but surely claiming the map. At least his half. While SHIN did everything he could to keep him away from it. He had almost double the bases. Nearly double the income. But now we're here. The Cyclones, just a couple split off. Maru now has 3k in the bank. SHIN is rebuilding spires rather than fight this, which is... it's a choice. His entire tech tree is at risk here. The Thors! Just a wall of heavy metal. SHIN has decided, actually, maybe I shouldn't lose my entire tech tree. Oh, he grabs some of the Thors, which are very good against Thors. EMP doesn't solve the problem. Snipes very much do. And the Thors just blasting through. And 4 more broods. 9 Thors against 16 Broodlords. And a couple Thors will be grabbed. It looks like SHIN just gonna try to chase him. And here we go. The Liberator's trying to zone out the Infestors underneath. There's no direct anti-air. He's blasted forward. The Ghosts try to line up the shots. The heavy metal is there. More Thors on the way. And the Broodlords. Well, more Ghosts coming down. There's a full energy Infestor. He takes out the Ghost. Maru loses a huge chunk of his army. The Broodlord count is down to double digits, but that should still be enough to take out what's left on the ground. But the only problem, is it enough to take out what's left in the production tab? SHIN actually wins the fight. He takes out every single Thor. At least the ones in front of him. Over the last 3 minutes, nearly 20,000 resources. He killed 10 Thors. He lost only 9 Broodlords. And he started with significantly more. There's still enough broods to push forward. But he has 0 Infestors, which is not very many. He realizes that now. How many queens? Also 0. The monarchy is dead. And what's left to replace it? SHIN finally wins a fight. Unfortunately, it may be just in time to lose the war. Maru had enough money to rebuild his entire army. A tactical nuke has been launched. He may have just remembered he had it, but there's no Infestors to interrupt the snipes. The Banelings are rolling through and almost get the perfect connections, but Maru has +3 armor and it just saved him. The nuke will land. SHIN will type 2 Gs, and Maru will claim victory. SHIN lost how many Zerglings in that game? 1,012? What? Wow, that was so far off. I'm embarrassed now. Give me, edit that out. Well, the Banelings as well. I guess there weren't that many Zerglings mixed in, but throughout the fire and fury, 20 Ultralists. But Maru, by the time he lost a fight, he had already won the war. SHIN, it looked like he had some momentum, but he never broke the true army. He never broke the economy when it mattered most. Maru kept sending out one base at a time. And if it costs you thousands of resources to deny mining for 30 seconds, that was a masterclass in meticulously gathering momentum, meandering around the map with near perfect micro to complement his macro. And now, Maru, off to a strong start. Well, there's your clinic on how to play Mech. And honestly, I think SHIN made a lot of good calls. Swarmhouse? We've seen players attempt... The problem with Swarmhouse is they're even more fickle than Broodlords. They don't always do great in a straight-up fight. They're easily taken out by Hellbats or thinned out by Widowmines. He's had enough of this shit. Oh, I'm like, wait a second. A proxy hatchery is the choice in game 2. Yep. Okay. Wow. And Maru goes command center first against proxy hatch. Can someone... I don't even know how he sits in his gamer chair with balls that big. What are you doing? He has no respect at all for SHIN. That is disgusting. This is a hatch first. He's completely and utterly calling his bluff. And it is indeed a bluff. SHIN puts his hatch out like, I got a proxy hatch. I'm gonna get so aggressive. You better do something about this. Maru builds a command center. Oh my. Now, he was gonna go command center first, and he still does. Most players, I think almost all, would maybe adjust their plans. But Maru, with a complete and utter disregard for SHIN's very forward strategy. The only part of this that he's even pretending is a threat is the fact the hatchery is this close to his base at all. So he's going to have a bunker. But SHIN went 3 hatch before pool and is relying on this base to get him a lead. But, well, okay. 1, clear disrespect. I love it. But at the same time, there is a hatchery now building a queen on the low ground, and he's only going to have a couple Marines. So I'm actually I've never seen anyone so nonchalant about what should be an existential threat. So I would love to know how Maru intends on handling this. Oh, he's going to bring the Marine down. The creep is now covering the bunker, but that's just a cosmetic. Well, he can't build there. He can still repair. Queen pops out. I've arrived! Respect me! I think if you demand respect, it kind of takes away from the whole idea. Like, you don't really have the gravitas. If you... Shut up, Susan! I'm... Sorry. So Shin's just going to do a Spinecrawler rush because of everything. That's gestures at the whole... This is well-deserved for Maru, as you really do need to do something about it. Shin has committed a huge percentage of his early economy to get something done. And now, well... The Spinecrawler can outrange the bunker if you put it in exactly the right spot, and the Overlord will provide high ground. Oh, there's a siege tank. Oh no. Is he gonna try to fight the siege tank? That's not how anything works. The queen. Oh. He doesn't have vision of it. Well, he does. Okay, he does. Does it matter? No. Literally, the moment the Spinecrawler is complete, the siege tank is out to shut it down. Now, Shin is back creeping. Which... Okay. Zergling speed is done, but Maru... Just... He shut this down harder than a blue screen computer, and he's almost too young to even understand that, but... Shin... realized that Maru was calling his bluff, and he turned it into not a bluff. But by then it was too late, and Maru had already called that as well. He built a Raven in order to deal with the creep tumors slowly spreading across the map. That Spinecrawler going to use the auto turret to buffer and then help take out the creep tumors. And this is just surgically dismantling one of the most intense and potentially stressful strategies in the entire game. This is the crawl of shame. Brenda, is that Spinecrawler faster than you? It has more legs! I don't think that's true. And also, why would that matter? Alright. So now what? The third step, I guess that's where we are of this, is wondering the next. Maru has not seen anything on the other side. He has not scouted at all. This is the furthest he's seen onto the map. Right outside where his third base should eventually go. So he doesn't know if Shin is doing like a big rush to mute us, a whole bunch of roaches, getting 100 drones. The second one is the current case, but he can't know for sure until these medevacs come out. He's still just casually strolling across. He's completely cleared up the creep. Barely an inconvenience in the grand scheme of things here. But Shin does have 57 drones. He does have +1 carapace on the way. Roach speed as well. He has a strong economy and the right unit composition to use it maybe before Maru as an answer, as Maru is now getting stim, but he's not getting combat shield because he only has 1 tech lab on his barracks, which means he's very limited in what he can actually upgrade. There's a real chance that a Roach Ravager timing finds a lot of success, especially with Maru now taking a third, despite everything. Of course he had a third CC, don't be ridiculous. Raven, heading across. What are you gonna do? Fire corrosive bow? Yep. Maru just leaves, refuses to elaborate further. Did he spot the infestation pit? No. But he's got an idea of what he's dealing with. He knows it's Roach Ravager. But he also knows Shin's playing it safe. He knows he's keeping back, has the Ravagers at home, so he can likely get away with 2 medevacs out on the map. And that is how you continue to assert map control while constantly scouting, because this requires a response. 16 dudes with drugs and guns are always a danger in so many ways. And here Shin has to keep at least a third or so of his army back if he wants to defend against it. And is 2/3 enough to attack into an entrenched siege tank line? It is not, in almost every case. Especially considering Maru already has 1-1. He's building Marauders. He has a Raven at home. It's not going to happen. Shin already realizes that, though. He's got Infestors on the way. A Hive has begun. And this has transitioned into a full-on macro game. Honestly, that was the intent from the very start. And then Shin was kind of offended by Maru's lack of offense. Tried to turn it into an all-in, but successfully macroed it out to the point that if it wasn't these two in this particular matchup, I would say it's an even game. But Maru always seems to have an innate advantage, so an even game is still a difficult position for Shin. As the Marines are just chewing through the roaches with an upgrade advantage. Maru picking his fights well. The Zerglings will force the pickup eventually, but 6 drones dead to the Raven. Several of the roaches whittled down. And Maru, the best defense is keeping this small yet strong amount of offense that Shin can't deal with directly because he doesn't have Vipers. He doesn't have Corruptors. He has no anti-air, is what I'm meandering my way to. But he does. There's no way. Wow! Okay. Finally. He landed something. The Corrosive Bow knocks out 2 medevacs. Thankfully for Maru, the ones that were empty and near empty, but throws up the Corrosive Bow in the middle of everything. And Maru looks away for a second. Now there's an Ultralisk Cavern and Adrenal Glands in production. Again, Shin is going to be calling on the Big Daddy Lisks. And this time around, Maru does not have Cyclones and Widowmons and a whole bunch of command centers. It is a much easier position to attack into. Not easy, but much easier. It's all relative. Especially with 3 Vipers on the way. Baneling Nest as well. Shin really focusing on maxing out and having an army to try to sweep Maru away, which Maru not one to be swept easily. Four Ultras in production. Chitinous plating. The Infestors. He spots him. He's just trying to bait it out. Meanwhile, there's enough bio over to the right flank. Again, exploiting the severe lack of anti-air. Aside from some incredibly lucky corrosive biles. Which I doubt Maru's going to let that happen again. Loads up a Widow Mine Drop. Does he have Drilling Claws? Indeed he does. Another sort of unit that Shin is kind of ill-equipped to deal with. Still only 4 queens. The Maru actually almost stepped right into it, but the Widow Mines, he burrows and it's gonna go off. Gets 4 drones. But wait, there's more. The drop in the natural dealt with, but the Widow Mines in the third, very much not. Another one will burrow. He waited for the Zerglings. Oh, and he blows them to pieces across the field. I'm reasonably sure that he waited until he could get the secondary hit there on those Zerglings. And the double tap does terrible, terrible damage. But at the same time, Shin is maxed out. He's got Mass Baneling. He has Adrenal Glands. He has Ultras with Chitinous Plating, though he hasn't started Ultra Speed, which is a remarkably common forgotten upgrade that is super important. So that way you can at least keep up with the Marines and Marauders when they're stimmed off creep. They're about the same speed. After the speed, thank you. anabolic synthesis. I'm sorry, if that makes more sense. But the Ultras and Banes, Widow Mines, Ravagers quite useful for helping deal with them, but Maru slowing things down. The Vipers, the Widow Mines, anti-armor missile gonna counteract the chitinous plating. The Ghost gonna counteract any Ultras in the front line, but the Blinding Clouds will negate the siege tanks. The Ravagers getting caught up on the planetary fortress. The disjointed attack is definitely working in Maru's favor, but Shin still has a lot to deal with. The Widowmon softening it up, dodges away. The Ravagers are dying to planetaries. An Infestor's next on the agenda. Losing an Infestor to a planetary is certainly not ideal. Throws out a dying fungal, actually kills the planetary. So Maru suffering some significant losses. It was a costly fight. 7 Ultralists, 2 Infestors, 2 Vipers, but he got 4 Ghosts. He got 3 Siege Tanks. He got the planetary. Another orbital command will float over. Maru adding more and more CCs as he drags more and more of middle management into this horrible email chain, but Ghost Cloaking now completed. Shin, 82 drones, and he's still maxed out. A conspicuous Overseer. Uses Contaminate, will delay +2 mech armor, which, you know, it's annoying. And Maru is still at 200 supply, and Shin with a similar army composition to try to break it. Splitting off a few Marines and Marauders. A slight lull in the action as Shin refills. The Widow Mines will be dragged out. The Ultras mostly unchecked. And the Baneling staying, well, kind of staying close enough to the planetary to make sure the splash damage is useful. The siege tanks are mostly concentrated at the 12 o'clock, which helps them take out the Ultras. And now the Ultras trundling up the ramp, Dorito dusted by the anti-armor missile. And another planetary drawing a lot of aggro there, and he's just going to let it finish as more command centers are ready to move over. The zoning planetaries. 5 more SCVs dead. The siege tanks helping add to that count as well. A Spire in production. And again, Shin will find a nominal success. But again, Shin is refilling with the same army. As Maru, well, the losses. Shin has lost 6,000 more resources, 2,000 more gas, which we're hurtling towards that same scenario, where if Shin has half the map, but he's just unable to do anything with the endless swarms of Ultras and Zerglings, then Maru can slowly but surely expand and just siege his way forward in a very literal sense. Especially now that Liberators are being added into the composition. Doesn't matter if you have Hellions and Cyclones, you have Marines, Marauders, and Mines. The same sort of principles apply. And 2 Vipers are the spellcasters for now. Widow Mines. Just quick little push up there to make sure they don't stray into them. Some burrowed roaches blocking bases, at least for a couple seconds. Constantly scanning forward. How many scans now? I mean, sorry, orbital commands. Freudian slip. 6 orbital commands. 3 factories on the way. As he's going to create a bit more of a bio-curious composition. Mixing in the mech like it's the Brood War. And much more powerful in the late game. I wonder if it's mass siege tanks. We're going to find out. That's so many ghosts, but they're all stacked up. Where Shin can potentially close the distance. Blinding Cloud at the front. Vipers at the back. The Banelings continue to go forward. The Widow Mines might be able to backstop. The Widow Mine does connect. And Maru retreats. He lines up the shots. The Infestor strays in. I don't know if Maru... He did notice. He definitely noticed. Lines up... Oh, no. Okay. The single Infestor is taken out. And with it, the most pressing threat to the existence of this bio-army. Siege tanks added in. +2 mech weapons is already done. Liberators over the top. Shin is mixing in +1 flyer attack. He still has 84 drones. The economy has been seesawing back and forth. Almost dead even in terms of income. Which doesn't bode well for the Zerg player losing 8,000 more resources. But... His Maru... Missile turret. No, a Raven. Wait, the Raven's still alive. It has 15 kills. That Raven, I think that's the same Raven there and back again throughout the entire map that SHIN baited out by going proxy hatch. Wow, just completely whips the fungal and then proceeds to die of shame. And also bullets, but mostly shame. There's a Roach inconveniencing a few more units. Okay. The Ultras and Lings looking for another angle of attack. The Changelings. 4 more command centers in production, as there's not much more to do with your resources at this point for Maru. And up to like 10 or 12 orbitals, it's still worth it to invest. The planetary is easily chewed up. Not too many units behind. The Banelings rolling through. Blinding Cloud. Great Blinding Cloud in the midst of the siege tanks and the rest of the bio. But the Widow Mines will thin out the Banelings. And Maru's Ghost Ball just continues rolling back and forth across the map. So far, he's lost 5 Ghosts. But he's slain 14 Ultras, 5 Infestors, 3 Vipers. Now, the Ghosts can't be credited with all of them, but they certainly did their part. And now, SHIN, while he has most of the southern half of the map, the north is claimed by Maru. The Ghosts getting very far forward. Almost too far. But if they make it to the ramp, then they should be protected. And SHIN, unable to close the distance on more than 1 or 2 Ghosts. It's just, well, there's a couple Liberators, 3 Siege Tanks, but a very thin defense. The Zergling's actually probably the best counter to all this. Another command center in the corner. The Widow Mine splits it off. Maru unburrows, reburrows. Wow, this is happening. Lets it go. Another Widow Mine. Another chunk, but most of the Zerglings make it through to the base at the 12 o'clock. A dozen SCVs dead before anything really starts. 15 SCVs. Maru left with 54, but that means he has a massive army supply. 136 and counting. The Fungals, and finally the Raven is taken down by a Spore Crawler, but an anti-armor missile from the grave. And now, the Ultras exploderated across the front line. 2 of them with less than half an Ultra HP between them left over. And he's just gonna build more. SHIN and Maru both at 175 supply. The Zerglings have not stopped, by the way. They've continued as the factories are burning. A nuke is launched from the low ground. Oh no. Maru. He heard it, right? He knows. He sees. He does. SHIN pulls away just when he's found a huge win. Sorry, we got to look at the nuke, of course, obviously. Look into the light. SHIN, 33 SCVs killed. Maru has 8 orbital commands, but that's a little low on the SCV count. The Ravagers will work their way through. The Widow Mines take out some Vipers. And a single siege tank left behind will take out the rest of the Ravagers. Maru scanning across the board, trying to figure out exactly what SHIN is refilling with. A few more Ultras, but he's got 12 Corruptors in production. He knows he needs to eventually deal with those Liberators. Well, there's only 2 Liberators and 5 Medivacs, actually. So, for once, the Corruptors may be a bit premature. 12 Corruptors is not a massive investment, but Maru is at 150 army supply. SHIN, his maximum potential without any sort of Spore Crawler trick shenanigans is 119, and he's at it right now. Which means any percentage of his army supply that can't really participate in the fight makes it that much harder to actually engage Maru in any sort of fight. There is an Infestor waiting for its moment. Its moment has passed. It is now dead. As Maru just scans, anticipating exactly that. That strategy. The Cyril Fester strategy has... Well, Maru more than most is aware of how dangerous it can be. A Nidus network, as SHIN continues to pull out his Prima strategy guide and try to figure out what tech he hasn't used yet. The only thing we haven't seen so far is Hydras or Lurkers, but if Ultras and Bane... This is not a Hydra Lurker situation. The time for that has passed. The proxy hatch. All the way to this. I'm not sure when he would have found the opportunity. But yep, nope. Go! We do it live. From apparently a quick lag spike there, but back into the action. As the Corruptors will knock out the Medivacs, will drag some of the ghost snipes in. The Ultra's leading the charge, and in the main base, the Zerglings. Oh, but there's no detection. He has to pop back into the Nidus. The Ghost will cloak, but the Ultras, the Ghosts are completely out of energy. And I think SHIN realizing that. He's going to continue forward. There's a Thor, but SHIN ripping through the front line. He's denying another Nidus. SHIN is undercutting the economy and chopping through the army. A victory across the board. Not a decisive one, but SHIN actually destroying more gas in the last minute and continuing that streak as he takes out a Liberator, maybe two. He knocked out all the medevacs, making it that much harder to keep the Ghosts alive. As has to be careful not to stray into the Ghosts that have recharged enough energy for yet another set of snipes. And more Corruptors will be nickel and dimed across the map. Maru with a command center in almost exactly the right spot for most efficient mining. Not that at this stage I think it's that important. But SHIN has done a great job of keeping Maru in check. But I think he's still a long way from mates. The Marine in the pipe 5x5, right, boys? The Changelings will spot all this. So will the Burrowed Infestor in the exact same spot as the last one. Will Maru scan it? Will it? Well, fool me once. You didn't fool him. Meanwhile, the Ghosts will knock out some of the Corruptors. And again, it feels like SHIN has the right answer. But maybe too late. As he is running out of resources. He has mined not too much more gas, barely 1,000. And he's lost 5,000 more. He has mined 8,000 more minerals and lost 11,000 more. His army is several thousand less resources and value. And obviously less in supply. He's going to try to break this position. But at the same time, Maru will trade bases. And it's a lot harder for SHIN to rebuild the economy than it is for Maru with 9 orbital commands. His army is literally just Ghosts. The Banelings will roll through. A bunch of Ghosts will get their face melted, but even more will survive the engagement. The army it's literally just Ghosts. All right. Making up for all the canceled games that Blizzard pretended they were going to release. But I'm sure I'm looking forward to the mobile one we're going to see soon this year. You guys have phones, right? You can like and subscribe on phones. Another Infestor strays into the scan, and another Infestor is killed with little ceremony. Maru has successfully reformed his shell and retreated into it. I mean, more like a porcupine, as the moment SHIN gets close, he throws out his quills. The quills are large bullets in this case. Don't worry about it. Another Viper. Can't help but feel it's been about 3 or 4 minutes of SHIN going through the motions, and Maru slowly but surely tightening the noose here. The supplies are about even, but there's still 13 Ghosts. A fungal catches some of them. Not enough. Maru claims 2. GG from SHIN. 600 Zerglings. 27 Ultralists. And he has the right idea, but never enough time or space to execute it. Maru just refuses to die from the lack of respect on that proxy hatch. SHIN literally, I am convinced that SHIN committed so much more to the proxy hatch simply because Maru was doing nothing about it. And then Maru just predicted that in turn. The siege tank on the way. I think if you ask SHIN, is a spine grower rush after going 3 hatch before pull, is that a real, viable, effective strategy? There's no time to ask. We're going into game 3. Winter, man, it's hopefully something you enjoy. But Maru again, and these aren't even throws. Okay, maybe a light toss. I've seen SHIN take the entire match, pick it up, and shatter it, like break it across the table and shiv himself in the neck. That I've seen those sort of games from him, where it just seems like he just cannot figure out how to win a game that he's already won. This is not that scenario. He has maybe had a slight edge, but if you don't know how to wield it, it cuts both ways. And Maru just, more than usual, seems content to let SHIN eventually die, more than kill him. Sure, he helps him along sometimes, throws out a drop or a small army, but SHIN eventually just runs out of quite literal gas, which at a premium, especially nowadays. So 33 times in a row. Now, can SHIN win 3 games in a row? Has SHIN ever won 3 games in a row against Maru in his entire career? It's possible. In a best of 7, I guess. Otherwise, no, because it would require him winning the last game of a series, which would mean he won the series, which he's never done. But I thought the Ravager-ling Bane was doing quite well. It's just so hard as Zerg, when you're on a similar economy, to make the call to tech switch, or even add on a lot of tech. As you've been investing, and you want to maintain that sort of army supply advantage, in order to compete with the more efficient Terran units and probably a more efficient position, planetary fortress, behind a wall or up a ramp or something. So making the call to not only invest in the tech, but maybe even free up the supply for it, whether it's Hydras or Corruptors or something like that. I think the Corruptors actually worked out great, but maybe too little too late. By the way, Maru pushed back the first Overlord, so that way it wouldn't be able to immediately scout his 3rd command center, which, of course, he has. Couple Hellions on the way. What other opener? Well, last game was certainly a unique opener. Game 1 was Hellion Banshee, but the most bare bones version. This looks to be our most standard. Oh, and he dropped. Run away! He's gonna go there. Oh, does he make it? What a save. Oh, Maru's coming back with the bear. Heartbreaker. SHIN actually survived. One shot away, but managed to outmaneuver the Marine, which is very hard to do, even though they can technically fly. But, in the end, Maru leaves no Overlord alive. SHIN with the front base probably got it blocked and was forced into a more vulnerable location. But, you know, maybe he wanted to preempt all that. Couple Zerglings. Door shut in his face. He's gonna see a starport. You're... Not enough minerals, but there are plenty of rocks. Are you saturated yet? I saw. Check out more of my Dronely fans after you like and subscribe. And Double Armory. Maru taking us back through the drive-through. McDonald's it is, and Double Armory indicates very likely Hell Clones as well. But we shall see. Does it? I'm not actually confident in that call. I was saying things, but I actually searched my brain for a moment. A lot of empty space to sift through, and realized I don't know if that means battle mech. Because if you're going to be more defensive, then you can probably get away with having less units and focusing more on upgrades for the late game. He's getting Banshee speed, the hyperflight rotors, which makes those Banshees just obscenely difficult to deal with. But they are still very fragile creatures. And, yeah, the double upgrades, mech, weapons, and armor. But we'll see if he starts building siege tanks or goes into the Cyclones and Hellions. Shin with a Spire on the way. Does he suspect...
You're in your base, killing your drones.
Meanwhile, 3 drones dead. The Queen herself, sorry. This is restricted layers. Not that. We've already talked too much. It's true, though. And the Queen, the Banshee, just a couple knitting needles away. Revenge! Oh, great job, Brenda. Thank you. Meanwhile, the scans. He didn't actually see the Spire. Oh, he does know about... Oh, the Hellions! Charbroiling the entire mineral line. Just dart right in. 14 drone kills. Shin's economy incinerated in seconds. He had the Zerglings, he had the Queens. But he did not have them in the right place at the right time. And now... Well, he needs to do some damage. Here come the Cyclones. It is Battle Mech. The instincts are right, but I'll be honest, I was not sure. As I haven't seen this exact style, or similar style. It's Maru. Maru's essentially playing the double engineering bay full greed, but as mech, which is so much more expensive. But he doesn't seem to care. He loses 3 SCVs in total, and I don't even know how many were part of that attack. Shin has bounced back, but replacing those drones is costly, both in larva and resources, and makes it less likely his next attack will hit in a timely fashion. The Cyclones are coming out. He's building 7 Mutalisks, but they feel more like a Mutarisk at this exact time. He knows it's Cyclones. He knows it's Mech. So, now, Maru either scanned or he knows about the Spire. These Mutas are not going to do anything. Well, they might die horribly and expedite the end of the game. But I will eat a chocolate shoe if these Mutas put Maru in any sort of disadvantageous position. Which is very subjective, but right now, they're about even. If it wasn't Mutas versus Cyclones, but it is. Gonna start working on this. Mag Field Accelerator is done. Cyclone locks on. And the Banshee's actually provided enough vision to knock down 1. He's still building Mutas. He's quadrupling down. Maru scans the lair because the biggest risk right now is a big switch either into Hive. Like, are you building more Mutas or not? Maybe Infestors. But he sees the Spire upgrading. So he's going to keep building Cyclones and Widow Mines. Meanwhile, Shin is going to have Mutas, Lings, and Banelings. Which... we'll see. The Hyper Shees. Muta is one of the few units that can actually catch up with it, so not a bad counter. But here come the Cyclones. And they will lock on. He has a scan, and Mutas will just be popped out of the sky, misting across the beautiful snow of winter madness. That was 4 of them. Has enough to take out the Widow Mines. A scan on the main. He actually spots the infestation bit right at the very edge. Alright. The only way out is through, apparently, for Shin, who has decided Mutiling Bane is the choice. Or die trying. And I think Maru was happy to oblige. Roach Warren is on the way. Very curious timing for that. The Lings and Banes. He's going to be maxed out. 88 drones against 80 SCVs. But Muta's struggle in a heads-up engagement. And right now he's committed a huge chunk of his army supply to those Mutalisks. An attempted planetary. Here come the Mutas. The Widow Mines hit about 20 Banelings. Oh, no. The fight... most of the Banelings dead before the fight... Oh... And Shin Well, the banelings feels like that's not an accurate indicator there. He definitely lost way more banelings. Shin loses the majority of his banelings to Whittle mines scattered throughout the field. Maru using them in the most mine sense. I know that sounded pretty dumb, but actually just scattering them throughout. And if he gets a hit, great. But the threat of them in general is already doing some damage. The mines themselves doing even more. Vipers in production. Ravagers are the choice. Shin mixing them in. Doesn't commit to 100% Mutiling Bane. A Greater Spire is on the way. Now, if only you could morph the Mutas directly into Broodlords. But Maru is maxed out, so he's just aggressively expanding. In most games, so... Oh, my Zerg heart. The heart of the swarm, if you would. This is... Well, okay. The Mutas just die. He'll replace them with Ravagers, Lings, and Banes. Shin has some Vipers, but does he even have an army to work? He's gonna try Blinding Cloud, okay, but there's so many Cyclones. He drags in the Cyclones, but doesn't even necessarily kill them. Oh, he's super dead. Yeah.
He's dead, Jen.
The damage is already done. Even if all these units spontaneously combusted, the Viper gets knocked out by a casual Cyclone. Even if every single one of these units just broke down on the field, Maru has enough in production and economy behind it. He kills a hatch, gets some drones. He knocks out every single Viper. And he's making roaches and lings against soon-to-be 3-3 Mech. He's fighting with horses against 3-3 Mech. Like, the parallels are pretty stark here. Winter is coming. Winter madness. That was a Stark joke, right? In case. In the game of drones, you win or you die. And well, I have my predictions. Now, this is more like, at no point in this game did Shin have the lead. And that has only become more and more true as time goes on. Games 1 and 2, he had a hope, he had a dream, he had a solid chance. But game 3, it's all fallen out. It's looking more one-sided than that Mobius strip yet again. Maru is maxed out, finishing 3-3 with... He's already added in Ghosts, by the way, which is honestly not even that helpful. It's never not helpful, but does he need 10 Ghosts? He has them. Like, just a bit gratuitous here. The Ravagers with a hitbox that large, I mean, it's like shooting at your mother, which we shouldn't do in that context. Sorry. Jimmy, edit that out. We only need to see one murder at a time. And right now, Shin is just... He tried almost nothing, and he's out of ideas. It's Vipers, Ravagers, and Lings after the Mutas, which seems like the wrong order. And Maru pretty concisely proven that point as he collects his 3rd set of Gs. And 3 games in a row, Maru makes sure Shin is unable to break the streak. 33 series. But nobody beat Shin 34 times in a row. Or so we'll see. On the next episode of Oh No, it's Shin versus Maru again. Maru putting on an absolute clinic. 2 games in a row. Honestly, that first game was an incredibly educational. It's not even that Shin played poorly. He did very well. He's not Cyril. Was his biggest mistake. Playing the late game for anyone, literally anyone else against Maru is effectively impossible. And Shin did quite a job of it. Not nearly good enough, but quite a job. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Thank you for watching, and I just want to check in. Thank you to those who tuned in for Gamers for Giving 2026. We raised over $17,000 for children's hospitals, supporting them with equipment and gaming equipment and support to make a whole lot of days a little bit better. I hope I made another one of yours at least a little bit better. And if you got the means of motivation, awesome, check out Patreon, YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free, at least for now. And I hope to see it. Thank you to our Patreon mule tier subs. Yes, that. Big Jiggy Devendor, Kate Mars. Glad you still enjoy it. Make sure to check out this video Jimmy picked out just for you. And thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Good luck, have fun. Stay chill. You can just edit down the outro. No, it was bad. All right?